In 2001, Yvonne Ridley, a British journalist working for the Sunday Express, was assigned to cover the war in Afghanistan. As a brave journalist accustomed to reporting from conflict zones, she illegally sneaked into Afghanistan, disguising herself as a local woman by wearing a burqa. Her goal was to obtain an exclusive report on the situation under Taliban rule. However, her adventure turned into a nightmare when she was captured by Taliban forces near the Pakistan border. At the time, news about the Taliban was filled with images of brutality, and Ridley was convinced that she would be imprisoned or even executed. In a state of fear, she tried to hide her true identity, but after an inspection, the Taliban quickly discovered that she was a Western journalist who had entered without permission. When taken to a Taliban detention camp, Ridley thought she would be treated harshly. However, the opposite happened. She was not beaten, tortured, or mistreated as she had imagined. Instead, the Taliban guards treated her with respect. They even provided her with food, water, and a proper bed. Among them, there was a man who often spoke with her. Politely, he asked if Ridley wanted to read the Quran. Ridley, who was still stubborn at the time, flatly refused. She felt that this was merely part of the Taliban's propaganda to brainwash her. However, as time went on, she began to notice something that unsettled her: the way these men behaved. Although they were often portrayed as monsters by the Western media, Ridley saw that they lived with discipline, upheld their honor, and remained steadfast in their religious values. During a conversation, one of them said to her, "We will not harm you because Islam forbids us from hurting innocent women and guests." These words changed Ridley's perspective. She began to wonder, why were the people labeled as terrorists more polite and honorable than some men in her own country? After 11 days in captivity, the Taliban finally released Yvonne Ridley as a goodwill gesture to the West. As she was about to leave, one of the Taliban leaders advised her, "Read the Quran. Don't trust the media. Find out about Islam for yourself." Those words kept echoing in her mind. She, who once deeply hated Islam, began to feel intrigued to learn more about the religion. After returning to England, Ridley couldn't ignore her promise. She began reading the Quran and studied Islam objectively, not through the lens of the media she had always known. The more she read, the more fascinated she became. She discovered that Islam was not a religion of violence, as often portrayed in the media, but a faith of compassion, discipline, and justice. The teachings about the oneness of God, women's rights in Islam, and the beauty of Muslim morals deeply impressed her. 2 years after her captivity, in 2003, Yvonne Ridley recited the Shahada and officially embraced Islam. Her decision to convert shocked many people in England. As a journalist, she was known for being outspoken and courageous in criticizing injustice. Now, as a Muslim, she uses her voice to fight Islamophobia and defend the rights of Muslims in the West. She wrote books and frequently spoke at various international forums to explain how the Western media often misrepresents Islam. She was also active in politics, criticizing the foreign policies of Western countries towards the Muslim world. In the past, she thought Islam was a religion that oppressed women. However, after converting to Islam, she actually experienced a freedom and peace she had never felt before. People thought that after I converted to Islam, I would become an oppressed woman. On the contrary, I feel freer than ever, she said in an interview. Yvonne Ridley's story is proof that guidance can come in unexpected ways. From a journalist who once hated Islam, she eventually discovered the beauty of a religion she had misunderstood. She said, "If I had never been captured by the Taliban, I might never have known what Islam really is." Now she continues to fight for the truth and against negative propaganda about Islam. From a skeptical journalist, she has transformed into a devout Muslim and a defender of Islam in the Western world. Elisabeth Jakstadt, a beautiful woman from Germany, once lived a glamorous life as a model. At the age of 15, she was already walking the catwalk, gracing magazine covers, and even modeling swimwear for a famous brand in Brazil. Her life seemed perfect in the eyes of many, Popularity, beauty, and freedom appeared to be part of her world. However, who would have thought that fate would lead her down a different path, one filled with peace and true meaning in life? Elizabeth's spiritual journey began when she visited Egypt for a vacation. She enjoyed the beauty of the land of the pyramids, wandered through bazaars, tasted local delicacies, and admired the exotic Middle Eastern culture. However, a small incident changed her entire perspective on life. While shopping at a bazaar with a group of tourists, Elizabeth noticed a Muslim shopkeeper who suddenly closed his store right in front of them. It was Friday. At that time, Elizabeth still had a materialistic mindset and felt surprised and somewhat annoyed. To her, it was a golden opportunity for the shopkeeper to make a big profit since the tourists were ready to spend a lot of money. How foolish this man is, Elizabeth thought. Why would he close his shop and turn down our money? Her curiosity pushed her to ask the shopkeeper directly. The answer she received was simple, yet it struck her deeply. "I am a Muslim, and it is my duty to perform the Friday prayer," the man replied calmly. Elizabeth was speechless. She never expected someone to willingly give up worldly profit just to fulfill a religious obligation. From that moment, her mind became filled with deep questions. What is the true purpose of life? Why is this man so steadfast in his faith? What makes this religion so strong? Curious about Islam, Elizabeth began exploring its teachings. She purchased a translation of the Quran and started reading it. Initially, she was merely seeking knowledge, but the deeper she read, the more captivated she became. When she reached the middle of Surah al-Baqarah, Elizabeth experienced something she had never felt before, an overwhelming sense of peace. She found answers to many of the questions that had long troubled her mind. "I felt as if the Quran was speaking directly to me. I cried as I realized how empty my life had been all this time. I had everything, beauty, a career, money, but there was still a void that couldn't be filled. And when I read the Quran, I discovered the true meaning of life," she recalled. With full conviction, Elizabeth finally recited the Shahada, officially embracing Islam and choosing it as her path in life. However, her journey of transformation was not easy. Her decision to convert to Islam brought numerous challenges and hardships. Elizabeth decided to wear the hijab as an act of obedience to Allah. Unfortunately, this decision cost her her job. Once respected as a teacher, she was suddenly fired solely for wearing the hijab. They even offered me double my salary if I agreed to remove my hijab. But I refused. I couldn't betray my faith, and because of that, I was fired and expelled, she recalled, her eyes welling with tears. Elizabeth's life changed drastically. From being a model with many fans, she had to face a life filled with challenges. Not only did she lose her job, but she also lost her place to stay. However, she remained resilient and was confident that Allah would open a way for her. In the midst of her hardship, Elizabeth met a man who was intrigued by her conversion story. He offered his help and connected her with an acquaintance in Egypt. It seemed as if it was destined as Elizabeth returned to Egypt, the country where her journey to Islam had begun. There, she found a place to live and a supportive Muslim community. Now, Elizabeth has settled in Egypt and lives as a devout Muslimah. The story of Elizabeth Yakstad is a testament that guidance can come from anywhere, even from unexpected small events. From a model living in a glamorous world, she found peace in Islam. Elizabeth chose to lose wealth and worldly comforts in order to preserve her faith. However, she gained something far more valuable: peace of mind, conviction, and true happiness. "I may have lost my job and my home, but I found something far more precious: Islam, and that is the greatest gift of my life," she said gratefully. Elizabeth's journey reminds us that in every trial, there is unexpected help from Allah. And for those who seek the truth with a sincere heart, Allah will surely guide them to His path. Luna is a woman from Denmark who was born and raised in a family that had no knowledge of Islam at all. In her neighborhood, Islam was often seen as a foreign religion and even full of negative stereotypes. Like most people in the West, she grew up with the understanding that Islam is a strict religion with many rules. However, life often brings unexpected surprises. Luna's journey to discovering Islam did not begin with books or religious lectures, but with something simpler: observing the Muslims around her. Luna first began to notice the differences in the way her Muslim friends lived. She observed how they carried themselves with calmness and patience. What surprised her the most was that they never spoke ill of other religions, even when people around them often criticized or belittled other beliefs. One day, Luna asked one of her friends, "Why do you never speak badly about other religions? Don't you also believe that your religion is the most true?" Her friend smiled and replied, "Islam teaches us to respect all beliefs. We believe that everyone has their own path in seeking God, and it is not our place to belittle them." That answer left a deep impression on Luna. She had never heard anyone talk about religion in that way. Usually, religious debates in the West were filled with criticism and conflict. But here, she found something different, something that felt more peaceful and full of respect. Luna's interest in Islam grew even more. She began asking her friends more questions about their religion. One day, she accidentally saw one of her friends praying. She was mesmerized by how deeply focused and calm her friend seemed, as if she were speaking directly to God. Curious, Luna asked, "What do you feel when you pray?" Her friend gently replied, "I feel at peace. I feel close to God, as if all my worries and problems disappear for a moment." Luna fell silent. She tried to imagine what it would be like to have that kind of relationship with God, a relationship filled with tranquility, not fear or obligation. From there, she began reading more about Islam. She learned about prayer, fasting, and other Islamic teachings. She also came across inspiring stories of people who had found peace in Islam. However, the more she learned, the more she faced a big question. Do I really want to become a Muslim? Although her heart was beginning to be drawn to Islam, Luna couldn't simply ignore the fear inside her. How would her family react? What about her non-Muslim friends? Was she ready to live a life with an identity different from most of the people around her? She struggled with these questions for months. She tried to find reasons not to move forward, but the more she tried to avoid it, the more she felt that her heart had already found its answer. One night, she sat alone in her room reflecting. She realized that all this time, she had been searching for something that could bring peace and meaning to her life. And now, after discovering Islam, she felt as though she had found what she had been searching for all along. With a racing heart, she finally decided, "I want to become a Muslim." When the day came, Luna felt a mix of nervousness and happiness. She went to a mosque, accompanied by some of her Muslim friends. With a slightly trembling voice, she recited the Shahada. "I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." As those words left her mouth, she felt something extraordinary, a peace she had never felt before. Her tears fell, not out of sadness, but because of the deep happiness within her. She knew that her life would change after this. She would face challenges, possibly lose some friends, and maybe even face rejection from her family. But she also knew one thing. She had found the truth she had been searching for all along. As she had expected, Luna's decision to become Muslim was not easily accepted by everyone around her. Some of her friends and family were shocked, and some even tried to persuade her to change her mind. "Why did you choose Islam? Isn't it a religion full of rules?" Luna smiled and replied, "It is precisely because of the rules that I feel more at peace. Islam teaches me to live better, to be more disciplined, and to value time more." Although not everyone could accept her decision, Luna never regretted it. She continued to learn, to delve deeper into Islam, and she fell more in love with the religion that had now become a part of her life. Now, Luna often shares her story with others. She wants to show that Islam is not a religion that restricts, but a religion full of love, peace, and meaning. She wants to prove that anyone can find Islam, even in the most unexpected places. For her, the journey to Islam is not the end, but the beginning of a deeper spiritual adventure. Luna's story is proof that guidance can come from anywhere, even from small things like seeing someone pray or hearing calming words. She didn't search for Islam, but Islam found her. And when her heart opened to accept the truth, she knew that she had found her true spiritual home. Her journey was filled with challenges, but also with happiness. And most importantly, she had found the peace she had been searching for all along. Sarah Bacher, a former model, actress, fitness instructor, and feminist activist, once lived a glamorous life in South Beach, Miami, a place known for its luxury, freedom, and hedonistic lifestyle. Like many other American girls, she was obsessed with beauty, fashion, and how to appear attractive in the public eye. However, beneath all the glitz and glamour surrounding her, Bacher began to feel an indescribable emptiness. She felt like a prisoner of the beauty standards created by the fashion and entertainment industry. Every day she had to ensure she looked perfect, followed the latest trends, and maintained the image that many women admired. However, the more she tried to meet those standards, the more trapped she felt. Eventually, Bacher began searching for the meaning of life beyond the glamorous world that had confined her. Her search led her to various spiritual practices, meditation, and the exploration of different religions. However, the biggest turning point in her life came after the events of September 11th, 2001. The world was suddenly filled with discussions about Islam, and unfortunately, most of what she heard were negative stereotypes. As a feminist and activist, Bacher felt compelled to learn more about Islam, rather than simply accepting the narrative portrayed by the media. A chance moment changed everything. She came across the Holy Quran, something she had always seen as foreign and even dangerous to many in the West. At first, she was only drawn to its physical appearance, but as soon as she began reading it, her heart was deeply moved. Unlike any other text she had ever read, the Quran spoke directly to her soul. She felt as if it had been written specifically for her, providing answers to the questions that had long haunted her. Her spiritual journey did not stop there. Bacher eventually decided to embrace Islam, finding the peace she had been searching for. She recited the Shahada and began living as a Muslim woman. Shortly after, she married a Muslim man who supported her new path. One of the biggest steps she took after becoming a Muslim woman was wearing the hijab. That day was a historic moment for her. She bought a graceful long dress and a headscarf, then walked through the same streets where she had once strolled in revealing clothing, bikinis, shorts, or fashionable work attire. But this time she felt different. For the first time, she truly felt like a free woman. Bacher's journey to Islam did not stop at the hijab. She began considering wearing the niqab, face veil. At first, she asked her husband whether it was obligatory in Islam, and he explained that niqab was not a requirement. However, a year and a half later, Bacher felt that wearing the niqab was a calling from her heart. She wanted to do it for the sake of Allah and for her own inner peace. When she finally wore the niqab, the outside world's reactions were mixed. The media buzzed with debates about the face veil, with many politicians and human rights activists labeling it as a form of oppression against women. However, for Bacher, such accusations were pure hypocrisy. She observed how the world loudly defended women's rights to dress minimally and freely, but denied their right to cover themselves if they chose to. She felt that true feminism should grant women the freedom to choose, not just the kind of freedom defined by Western culture. "I remain a feminist," Bacher said, "but a Muslim feminist who calls on other Muslim women to fulfill their responsibilities as wives, mothers, and individuals with values. I want to see Muslim women strong in their faith, raising their children to be righteous Muslims and spreading goodness in the world." Currently, Sarah Bacher is active as the communications director at the March for Justice, the assistant founder of the Global Sisters Network, and a producer at the same organization. She continues to advocate for the rights of Muslim women, inspiring many women, both those who have been Muslim for a long time and those who are new to Islam. For her, wearing the hijab and niqab is not a symbol of backwardness, but rather a symbol of true freedom, the freedom to choose who she is without external pressures. Brooklyn, a girl from the United States, found the light of Islam through a spiritual journey filled with searching and prayer. This journey led her to the truth she had been seeking, and with full conviction, she finally recited the Shahada and officially became a Muslimah. Through her social media platform, Brooklyn shares the story of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided her to Islam. She believes that the guidance she had been praying for was finally answered by the Creator, who revealed the ultimate truth to her. "To me, God has shown the truth. Allah has shown the truth," she expressed with deep gratitude.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn, and I'm a Muslim. I grew up being a Christian. I wasn't looking for any other religion. I didn't think there was any other religion, just to be honest with you. One thing that I always consistently prayed for, though, was guidance. I prayed that God would guide me no matter what I was doing, no matter the bad things I was doing, the good things I was doing. Just as long as I was praying for guidance. And I knew that I was going to be blessed one day. I knew that life was going to be tough for me for a while, but it was going to be really good for me one day. I just prayed that God would tell me when that time was, when that blessing was there, so I'd be able to appreciate it. That blessing is me being a Muslim. I was 25 years old when I heard about Islam for the first time. I'm 26 now. Alhamdulillah, it's been a year since I've been a Muslim. And there's no turning back. Assalamu alaikum.
Since childhood, Brooklyn was raised in a Christian environment. However, deep in her heart, there was always a sense of unease that she couldn't ignore, especially regarding the concept of the Trinity. She felt that something didn't make sense, but she didn't know where to seek answers. Honestly, I wasn't interested in or aware of other religions. What I always asked for was guidance. No matter what I did, whether good or bad, I always prayed for guidance. Every time I prayed, it was a request for direction, she said. Brooklyn's request was not just words, but a sincere prayer that she offered in every situation. She felt that there was something she had yet to understand, but she believed that God would guide her to the truth. Brooklyn first learned about Islam at the age of 25. At first, she did not have a deep interest in the religion, but her curiosity began to grow when she heard her friends talking about Islam. One of the moments that surprised her was when she discovered that Muslims also believe in the story of Adam and Eve. All this time, she had thought that the story only existed in Christianity. However, what shocked her even more was how Islam explains the stories of the prophets in such detail and clarity. When I was still a Christian, I remember my friend telling me about Adam and Eve and how Muslims believe in it. I was shocked that Muslims had knowledge of the story of Adam and Eve. Then they explained in detail the stories of Prophet Moses, Noah, Jesus, and Abraham, she explained. Brooklyn became even more curious and started to learn more about Islam. She read about the lives of the prophets, studied Islamic teachings, and discovered that many of the principles she had always believed in were actually in line with Islam. Moreover, she realized that the laws in Islam actually also exist in Christianity. However, there was one major difference that stood out to her. Muslims follow these laws with full obedience, whereas in the Christian community she knew, these laws were not practiced with the same level of discipline. The laws in Islam actually also exist in Christianity, but the difference is that Muslims follow them. The Christians I know do not implement these laws the way Muslims do, she added. After a year of studying Islam, Brooklyn finally made a major decision in her life. With a firm heart, she recited the Shahada, acknowledging that there is no God but Allah and that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. At that moment, she felt a happiness that was difficult to put into words. A sense of peace and relief filled her heart. She realized that this was the answer she had been searching for all along. She then began practicing Islamic teachings with full sincerity, including wearing the hijab to cover her aura. For Brooklyn, Islam is not just a religion, but a perfect way of life that provides clear direction and purpose for humanity. I believe that God is one. He has no children and was not born from anyone. There is nothing like him. Islam is the perfect way of life. It is a guide for humanity from Allah, the creator of the universe. Within it lies guidance for life and the purpose of human creation, she stated with firm conviction. If there is one thing that made Brooklyn's happiness even more complete, it was when her mother also decided to embrace Islam. When her mother recited the Shahada, Brooklyn could not hold back her tears. She was deeply moved to see how Allah had granted guidance to her family. Her mother is now learning Islam with great enthusiasm, often asking questions and wanting to know more about the stories of the prophets and Islamic teachings. For Brooklyn, this is proof that Allah's guidance can come to anyone who sincerely seeks it. From her various life experiences, Brooklyn became even more convinced that worshiping the one true God is a human instinct. She encourages anyone who is still searching to keep praying and asking for guidance from God. If you feel that something is missing in your life, keep praying. Ask for guidance sincerely. Never be afraid to seek the truth. If your heart is pure, Allah will guide you to His light, she shared as a message to those who are still uncertain. Now, Brooklyn continues to share her story on social media, inspiring many people to learn more about Islam. For her, Islam is the most beautiful gift Allah has given her in her life, and she wants to share that beauty with the world.